Show me the money, right? For those of you that remember the Jerry Maguire movie, today's contract tip is all about the money in the 2024 Georgia Association of Realtors, or GAR, contract package, and how that has changed and why that is important to you as an agent. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors and director of the Real Estate Academy of America. And just going to briefly talk about what has changed in 2024 regarding your buyers and your sellers, and mostly your buyers, I think, and money and what form that has to be. So let's dive in. So as I teach in all of my classes, where do you learn this information? Well, the contract is a set of instructions. So let's go to the instructions. So in the Georgia Association of Realtors, or GAR, Purchase and Sale Agreement, which is Form F-201, the first thing that they changed with respect to the money has to do with the actual purchase price. In paragraph B2, where it says purchase price paid by the buyer, it says it shall be in US dollars by such method of delivery acceptable to the closing attorney, including but not limited to wire transfer of immediately available funds. That they changed, that has already been in the contract. Additionally, what they actually changed for 2024 is also in the purchase and sale agreement under the earnest money, the earnest money that the buyer will tender to the holder. Paragraph A7, earnest money will be paid to holder, and this is the phraseology that has been added for 2024, in a method of payment acceptable to the holder of immediately available funds. So for 2024, they removed, the GAR Forms Committee removed the check boxes that identified the specific forms of payment, where it said check, ACH, wire, so forth and so on. Those check boxes are removed. In the corresponding paragraph, paragraph B7 of the, actually, I take that back. It is in still under the earnest money section. Yes. So that is B6 of the earnest money. And again, this was actually changed, I believe, in 2023. What changed in 2024 is they took out the check boxes identifying the specific form of the earnest money. So anytime, well, let me read you this. Paragraph B6, holder of earnest money. Earnest money will be paid to holder in a method of payment acceptable to the holder. It goes on to say the holder has the right to charge the buyer for any cost associated with receiving of the earnest money. Again, how does this impact you as an agent? Well, a couple of things. When your typically buyer is sending money to the holder of the earnest money and to the closing attorney for the money that they have to pay for the house at closing, you as agents need to facilitate the information to these buyers regarding what form of money is acceptable to the holder. So, for example, buyers say, well, I might want to pay cash. Well, that's all good and well, but that cash most likely is not going to be acceptable by a holder of earnest money, nor by a closing attorney for cash to close to purchase the home. What about a check, a personal check, a bank check, a wire, ACH, electronic payment by Zelle or Venmo or PayPal or Cash App? So all of these things that a buyer and seller might negotiate with respect to earnest money might not be doable. So you as the agent, point of practice, you generally speaking know whom is going to hold the earnest money, whether it's going to be your broker, the other broker, or the closing attorney. So best idea for your own broker, you need to find out the policies and procedures for your own broker regarding what forms of money they will hold as earnest money. For example, some brokers will take a personal check, but up to a certain dollar amount, but they have to hold it for 7 to 10 banking days to make sure it clears. That's going to be an issue if a buyer terminates sooner than that time on due diligence and wants to use that deposit towards another contract. They wouldn't be able to. Certain holders, brokers, and closing attorneys will only accept a bank check or a bank check up to a certified cashier's check up to a certain amount of money or over a certain amount of money. Will they accept a money order? What about a wire? How long will it take to process that wire? How are you going to get the wire instructions to the buyer? The majority of brokers and closing attorneys are not emailing wire instructions. They are either you have to get a printout of the wire instructions and physically hand them to your buyer, or the holder has to send them via US mail or on the phone. So all of those methodologies, depending on what the policies and procedures are of the holder, might take a little bit of time, and you might have to account for that in the time frame from the binding agreement date to when the buyer has the obligation to send the earnest money to the holder. Additionally, if the amount is over $10,000, most brokers and most closing attorneys require that to be a wire. Why? Well, there is the depositing $10,000 for a business. There is an IRS form that has to be filed. The IRS works in conjunction with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And so there is an IRS form 8300 that is report of cash payments over $10,000 received in a trade or a business. And this is $10,000 in one lump sum or in installments. So you can't do separate mini checks to avoid this filing. The holder of the earnest money has to file this form, and it requires the identification of the individual from whom the cash was received, tons of information about the person on whose behalf the transaction was conducted, description of the transaction and the method of payment, and the business that received the cash. So again, it says depositing more than $10,000 into an account can trigger certain reporting requirements and may have implications for your financial transactions. Additionally, the bank, it is essential to be transparent and honest. Banks, here's what I wanted to read to y'all. Banks are required by law to file a currency transaction report with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network for any cash deposits, withdrawals, exchanges, or other transactions involving more than $10,000 in a single business day. Again, this is part of an anti-money laundering regulations. The CTR is a tool used by authorities to track and investigate potential money laundering and illegal financial activities. According to IRS.gov, however, a wire transfer does not constitute cash for Form 8300 reporting purposes. So the majority of brokers and closing attorneys, if the amount of earnest money or payment for closing is over $10,000, absolutely require a wire transfer. Additionally, closing attorneys have all sorts of other legal requirements they must adhere to regarding their earnest money accounts. and GREC, the Georgia Real Estate Commission, has all sorts of laws and regulations regarding brokers and their earnest money accounts. We have to have good funds before we have to act on that money. So what does this all boil down to? All of this boils down to you as an agent. When you are working with a buyer and a seller, but most likely this impacts a buyer, and you write an offer and the buyer has to send earnest money to a holder, and at closing has to send all of their money to the closing attorney. You need to find out what the form of funds that are acceptable to the holder before you especially fill in the time frame in the purchase and sale agreement, a paragraph A7, X amount of dollars within so many days of binding agreement date. Well, if the closing attorney, if the buyer feels like they can just write a check or get a money order, and yes, I can meet that term, I can meet that by 3 days from binding agreement date, but the holder doesn't accept that form of payment, if it's a check or whatever, then inadvertently that buyer could go into default of the contract by something that you as an agent can help avoid. Hope this contract tip helps you out. Again, part of this change was in 2023 and in 2024 to help with this, to highlight that the form of money must be acceptable to the holder. The GAR Forms Committee under the earnest money form did take out the check boxes specifying the form. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please comment below. Please subscribe for more contract tips. And I am Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, satisfying your needs with service, innovation, and education. Bye. If you like that video, check out the one here. If you like the content on this entire channel, please click here to subscribe. I try to take even the most complicated of real estate situations and make them crystal clear. See what I did there? Real estate made crystal clear. Thank you guys so much for watching.